A long time ago, people used to refer to what made the Walt Disney Company different. In fact, there used to be pins and other paraphernalia specifically talking about that Disney difference. Ever since around 2015, it seems like the company itself has been in a slow decline. Is this the end of the Disney difference? Let's talk about that on That Park Place. I'm Jonas J. Campbell, an investigative reporter for That Park Place, and today we're talking about a slow and methodical process that seems to be happening at the Disney parks, where they take the once great company and sand down all the edges into making it the least costly, most generically marketable theme park that they can get, while still charging that premium Disney price. However, as Disney seems to be lowering its standards for operational ease, we're also seeing guests that seem to be lowering their standards of behavior at the theme parks. Let's get into it. This is reminding me of how they downgraded the Polynesian lobby to save on maintaining what was an impressive waterfall before. Has anyone here witnessed that amazing construction in the Polynesian culture? You want to tell people about that?
It was incredible. It was like walking into a rainforest that would actually exist in Hawaii or someplace similar in Polynesian Isles. And you had this massive waterfall with tropical plants and a stream from this waterfall that ran outside towards what you would think would be the outdoor pool, which was just outside this massive array of glass. And you have this 2-story waterfall that you can see from both stories. It overlooked everything. And while the construction around it is still there, the facade was upgraded, and it turned it into like a La Quinta lobby with this tiny little fountain thing in the middle. Massive downgrade. And you had koi pond fish that were in this area as well. It was incredible, and it added to the ambiance of not just the lobby but the hotel overall, because it literally was decked out in lava rock and everything else, and it was built out with a great deal of artistry and care. And it looked like the hotel had been built around it. That's how impressive it was. Now there's your La Quinta lobby right there. With check it out. Look, it's inspired fishing nets. I mean, this is the downgrade that you're getting at all properties right now across Disney World. Instead of the uniqueness and the glory of these edifices themselves that were built with a certain amount of synergy for the things that were around it, you've now stripped it down to the absolute lowest maintenance, lowest common denominator of what something could look like. Compare this lobby now to even the lobby that exists in Hawaii that they built out for Aulani Resort. Compare it to a whole lot of other things that still exist, but maybe not for very much longer. Imagine what they're going to do to the inside of Fort Wilderness soon. I mean, they are literally taking these things down to like a mid-level Marriott, and that includes the rooms, the furnishings, and all of the accessories that are in rooms no longer are special. They're no longer purpose-built for that resort. They might as well come from IKEA. This is a problem with that under the current leadership, specifically Iger, that has arisen. So yeah, you're right, Jefferson. I'm sorry, I went off like crazy because this one pissed me off. I said a bad word, but it did. It made me angry. So, anyway.
I think that's pretty light.
There you go.
I'm trying to find pictures of the original. It was actually kind of hard to photograph the original Polynesian waterfall because it was so massive.
Yeah.
It was difficult to get a good angle on it. So thank you very much for the super chat. I hope we did it honor. As is Dead Chicken for $5. Don't know if anyone has been to Disneyland recently. The park is dirty and torn down. The streets are not kept up properly. They are not taking care of it.
Yes.
Vash, I believe you're pretty close to Disneyland right now. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I was just in the park 10 hours ago, so I've got some recent experience with it. You can definitely tell there has been a kind of a softening of the maintenance recently. I know that third shift for cast members, the cast members who do those maintenance items in the off hours, right, when the park is closed. I know that's been scaled back dramatically, which has led to effects where you're seeing the gardens not maybe as pristine as they once were, the streets not as clean as they once were, the trash and so forth not as kept up routinely because they're lacking cast members in that area as well. A culture, you were going to say something?
No, I'm just going to say, does this remind you of like the Pressler era?
It does. It absolutely 100%. This definitely reminds me of the Pressler era where we saw dramatic reductions in maintenance.
Now, I have a question.
Please go.
Could this also be due to people's differing values and how they're valuing the park as well play into it? Like if they're going into a park and they're not like odd, I feel like they're less likely to just kind of respect it. So could that be kind of like
really good point.
Interesting idea.
Like the idea of
in mindset as well.
It used to be when I was younger. I grew up very close to Busch Gardens. In fact, I might have been able to hear the screaming from the roller coasters from my bedroom. That close to Busch Gardens, and I always looked down at that park when I was younger because it wasn't Disney World, and when I would go in there, it wasn't as clean, it wasn't as bright. It was also jungle themed, so it's a different thing. They actually have to have a lot of dirt in there for that jungle theme, and the fact that it's a functioning zoo. But I did not respect that park the way that I would respect, Epcot, this big, clean, amazing experimental prototype community of tomorrow, because I thought maybe one day people would live here. I think you've got a good point there. I think that price tag might also indicate to people what they should be expecting when they walk into the park. Like they have higher standards. Go ahead, Vash. Sorry.
Well, no, we've definitely seen a change in the culture, I think, and how they treat these parks for sure. The price tag is interesting because you get a sense of there's definitely a sense of entitlement there. We've seen the behavior of guests change when the price tag is as high as it is, because people are like, "Oh, I got to get the most out of my visit here." So they walk with an enhanced pep in their step, let's say, in order to ride as many attractions as possible. You put an emphasis on Genie Plus, and you make conditions more stressful, and people have a tendency to kind of lash out in subtle ways, right? I think that's a very astute point, Kara, absolutely, for sure. I think that's part of what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of destruction in queues and so forth too, like the Tron queue with tearing down certain sections, the Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway queue in Disney's Hollywood Studios, and in Disneyland. Interestingly enough, with some of the propping there, it's tough as people have changed conditionally and culturally, and obviously as the Walt Disney Company has placed less emphasis on maintenance overall.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I just want to point out, because I have wonderful connections who listen to the show, I was sent this picture of the Great Ceremonial House before everything changed. Well, that's a great picture, by the way.
Beautiful. It is. That's cool.
I remember that. It's cool.
I was just thinking, because like Vash had just pointed on the change in like your generational mindset as well. Like I definitely think like whatever generation we're in right now does not, like, you see this outside of the parks. There's just a complete disregard for property in general.
That's fair.
So like, I mean, you see it with everything. Like cities are disgusting now. And so you can definitely see how that's leaking into these parks that are supposed to be clean and well maintained. Maybe there's just so much from people that aren't respecting or valuing the property as well. So I think that probably has something to do with it too.
And it's kind of snowballs too, because if something's clean, you typically keep it clean. But if it's dirty, well, now it's like
it just keeps building up and building up until, because like you can only do so much in a day. So it's difficult.
And the options are growing and growing. Here's another super chat, by the way, from As Is Dead Chicken. Thank you so much for being so generous today. Kara, I used to work for Disneyland. They used to respect and upkeep. We have passes because of my wife. There's a huge difference from 10 years ago to now. And we'll have a little commentary on people who used to be there about 10 years ago versus today. But I do hear a lot of stories that the maintenance crews aren't what they used to be. No disrespect to the maintenance crews. I don't personally know them, but I think there are a lot of people. The people who care are the ones who might be inclined to reach out to us and point out some issues here. Speaking of which, we had somebody point out that Moana Journey of Water issue that's actually been happening for months. They've been aware of it for months. And they went ahead and started everything up only to have to rip it out later, which I mean, I just don't get it, guys. I don't get it. But as is Dead Chicken, thank you very much for the super chat. And also Maverick Pilgrim for $5. Being in California, always wanted to take a family trip to Walt Disney World. Sad to watch the company and parks decline. My kids ask if we will go back to Disneyland. I just shrug.
Which makes me sad because I still vividly I went the only time I've ever been to Walt Disney World was I think I was like 13 years old. And so it's been almost 20 years since I've been. And I can still remember walking into like the Animal Kingdom. Like I still remember that. I still remember going to see the Lion King shows, and like my cousin was in the Tarzan show. And so like that was just a really cool experience. And I wonder if people still have that kind of nostalgia to it. If it is like if you walk in, and are you going to feel the same? Is it going to live up to 20 years ago if you went?
Mm-hmm. Here's a great comment from Caro Brown. Hello, Caro. It doesn't help that Disneyland always talks nasty about Florida and then demands tax breaks from the state. Yeah, this is a really good point, especially as we've been covering Reedy Creek and everything that goes on in the state of Florida. The Burbank crowd, they don't want to admit it, but they kind of view Florida as the place where all the hicks spend their money, and it supports the rest of the company. It really is true, though, that the Walt Disney World Resort pays for the rest of the company. When we were having all these issues with streaming, which we'll talk about that more here in a little while, when they talk about Disneyland being shut down for 26 weeks. It's Walt Disney World and the economic environment in Florida that has allowed the Disney company to flourish in the way that it is now. And they're kind of running a strategy right now where they're trying to use as much of that money from Florida as possible to push into all of these other regions that are more dangerous for them and more economically unstable for them. If anything happens, even Bob Iger said in an interview recently, what do you think about all these investments in China? What would Walt think of these investments in China? And it was a very political answer that he gave, because you can never speak bad about China if you're Bob Iger. Right. Because you only have to offend one person and you are screwed. He said he was not as optimistic because of some of the tensions. He was not as optimistic about investing in the China parks. Well, where are they investing right now? China.
Yeah, exactly. I had always heard for years internally within the company that Florida is the property you take money from, not necessarily the property you invest money into. Yeah, that was.
I do have a question though.
Yeah.
So, how many of y'all have been to like Tokyo Disney or the Disney in Paris, and how do they compare to the parks in the States cleanliness wise?
So this is interesting, Karen. This goes to your kind of I think the kind of the mindset about the culture just as much as the operations of the parks themselves. Tokyo is unbelievably clean. I mean, just the cleanest park you can be in. You can eat off the ground, essentially. The maintenance standards there are just unbelievable, but that also goes along with the culture that is very,
Tokyo in general.
Right,
is
exactly.
like just one of those like one of a safer city, so that transfers over into the park.
Now, Disneyland Paris, on the other hand, is one of the parks that is most riddled with maintenance issues, and we see destruction in that park significantly by the locals and tourists alike. Unfortunately, we see a lot of instances of graffiti, of carvings, of people trampling through grassy areas in which they should not be. We see a lot of we see a lot of problems with that park, especially, and unfortunately, that is an indictment of not limited to the Walt Disney Company, but also sadly of the local culture there.
Not that outright guy for $5. Polynesian was my favorite spot to work as a monorail pilot with the WDWCP 20 years ago because of the waterfall and its white noise. Can't fathom removing it. Yeah, there is something to be said for that amazing feeling of going in there, and there was this slight smell of bromine, which is one of those things that I wouldn't exactly call it a pleasing aroma, but at the same time, there's a little bit of contentness. I've even heard of people selling bromine scented candles.
Oh yes,
because there was a specific aroma and the soothing sound of that waterfall there. I love it, and I wish that I could have actually stayed at the Polynesian. That being said, I went into that lobby many times growing up. What an experience! Go Shogi or Gon Shogi for $5. If DVC is reliant on the quality of the parks and the parks are decline, what's the incentive to buy into their new properties?
Yeah,
that is a very good question, actually. And we're seeing some issues coming up. Here's a tweet from Scott Gooston, if my screen will show it, saying Disney Vacation Club shared renderings of the refreshed cabins at Disney's Fort Wilderness Resort, projected to open in stages through 2024. The one-bedroom cabin sleeps 6 and has a full kitchen. A limited number of dog-friendly cabins will also be available. They're all kind of getting into this generic feel here. I guess they're taking
Very
the
corporate.
excuse here. Yeah. It's
like a cookie cutter home that you see that's being built right now. That's exactly the feeling that I'm getting out of this. It doesn't have that the Disney pizzazz or that people want to stay at these things for the nostalgia and to feel like they're immersed, not to go stay at a place that kind of looks like your neighbor's house.
It's a shipping container special from HGTV.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking at right here. Gensler special for sure. This is Fort Wilderness, guys. This is log cabins. This is old rustic kind of theming right here. This is the antithesis, one would say, of this.
Thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Are we all just being too hard on the Walt Disney Company, or is there more to this story than what our panelists discussed? You tell us, because we would love to know. This clip was part of our now regular Thursday live stream, which starts at noon Eastern time. Of course, if you're not in that time zone, just hit the notification bell if you'd like YouTube to tell you when that is. Like this video if you like this video. If you know someone who is as interested as we are in this sort of thing, then maybe you should share the link with them. And of course, please consider subscribing to That Park Place for all the news that should be fun.
Thanks for watching That Park Place News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.